So today I want to answer the question, what should my MD order for my adrenal fatigue? Which I get a question a lot because I want to go through my insurance and I want to find out what's going on. I've been researching this. I fit a lot of the characteristics of adrenal fatigue, which is not handling my stressors very well. The least little stimulus makes me anxious, or I get exhausted and tired. Even if I try to exercise, I don't have much capacity and I'm ruined for the next couple of days. I crash in the middle of the day. I have salt or sugar cravings. I am more wide awake at night than I am in the morning. And I also don't sleep very well, and I'm also not very motivated, and my hormones are off. I'm not balanced. I have low libido, and there's this thing called adrenal fatigue. So what should I say to my MD? So my name's Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel because you'll hear lots of videos like this and many more in pieces of very, very good information. But anyway, so back to what should I say? Well, the first thing that I would do is speak their language. So you don't want to go in there with guns a-blazing saying, I have adrenal fatigue, we need to test for it, because that's going to repel them and make them think, oh, here's another Yahoo's just been on the internet, and they think that they're the doctor. So what I would ask is, or tell them, hey, I'm exhausted, I don't deal with stress very well, I crash in the middle of the day, my hormones are off, can we do a proper workup to see if I have an adrenal insufficiency? Oh, that's a good word to use. And that's really the medical model approach is they'll do an ACTH stimulation test. It's called an ACTH stimulation test. And that's where they give you a hormone which the pituitary produces that signals the adrenals to make cortisol. And if it's a true adrenal fatigue phenomena in the medical world, then when you give the body stimulation to the adrenals to make cortisol and they don't make it, that's called an insufficiency. That's an autoimmune condition. It's called Addison's. And many, many times, I think 90% of the time or more, people don't have an autoimmune Addison's disease where they do an ACTH test and they find that the test is positive, meaning it didn't produce, and your adrenals didn't produce any cortisol. So start with that. Because you want to know if that's the main thing, then you'll be taken more serious, and it is more of a serious condition. But just because it's negative doesn't mean you're not suffering with a problem, an adrenal problem, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. The next thing I would say is ask for a blood cortisol test. That should be done first thing in the morning, and ultimately, if you're not producing a given amount of cortisol, many times, if your adrenal insufficiency ACTH test is negative, your cortisol test is going to be negative because you just showed that you're producing cortisol and you're not going to be below that range. Typically from there, you're mostly you're asked to leave because you're told there's no such thing as adrenal fatigue and you don't have it. Or insufficiency. The next thing I would do from there is potentially ask for a saliva test. The saliva test can be very helpful in terms of your circadian rhythm, and that's where you're starting to see other mechanics go wrong, just besides the adrenals not producing enough cortisol from a ACTH test or a blood cortisol test. And that will look at different saliva samples throughout the day, which is looking at your circadian rhythm. We should have high cortisol in the morning and low at the end of the day. And that's the free fraction of the hormone, which means the amount that's available for use. And it correlates very, very nicely with the total amount. However, it's not the total amount. It represents 1%. So you're making big inferences on 1%. And many doctors don't order it. They don't know how to read it. And in my opinion, it's incomplete. From there, looking at blood work, seeing if there's any inflammatory markers, if you have mineral deficiencies, if you have cholesterol levels that are low or high, you have immune challenges, platelets are low, red blood cells or anemia challenges, white blood cells are high or low. Looking at those things to see if there's any clue, looking at your thyroid markers from a healthy functional range, not from a lab range. And then when all of that is basically dismissed and told there's nothing wrong, that's where you're typically, hopefully that doesn't happen, but you're going to have to go and explore a little bit further. Things like doing a Dutch test. We do that all the time. Have plenty of videos on that. So check out my channel at youradrenalfix.com. Make sure you check out my website called The Truth About Adrenal Fatigue. And that way you can get really good information. But hopefully this video was really helpful. My name is Dr. Joel Rosen. I am the Adrenal Fatigue Recovery Ninja, and I look forward to ending your adrenal fatigue nightmare.